Hello, here we are for episode 27 of the Gwadzilla Podcast. This episode will be another phone interview. Tonight I will be interviewing longtime DC Bicycle Messenger Thomas Kendrick. And we're going to have a little technical difficulty here. On the phone call, we made several attempts and my voice recorder came up with error several times. So we started and stopped again. Hope we don't repeat ourselves too much. There will be a slight overlap. Hope you enjoy it just the same. That's a quick audio clip of the band Flinch, which was a band comprised of several DC bike messengers, including Thomas Kendrick and previously interviewed Jay Belmore. We will hear about this band and other such things in the podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Hey, what's up?
All right, here we have take two.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. It's classic. And, I don't want to say that weed was involved, but weed was involved. But it actually had nothing to do with it. It just came up with a card error. So we have no idea without going back and listening to it. And since it said card error, let's just...
It's fine. You're going to edit it, so it's not...
No, this is it. This is one take, baby. No edits.
But you do a little editing.
No, there's no time for all of that. We just got to move forward. So think of this, let's think about like a radio show, a live interview. Don't say anything you don't want to say. I did an interview with my buddy Chris Schmidt a bit ago, and Chris had a few drinks, and Chris has a strong opinion on how things unfolded, but he's telling these war stories, and some of them are with his racers, and some of them are with his peers. But whatever the story is, I was like, dude, these are your bros. We're trying to document this.
That's how he is, though. It's always been that way.
Yeah, so I need to get with him again because I put it up, and then without even watching it, he contacted me and said, hey, man, don't post that. And I had already posted it, but without watching it,
That's terrible.
But because... we know what we're getting into.
Regret,
What's that?
It's like, don't say what you're gonna regret.
Yeah, and so or say it with a little more kindness.
Say it in a way that it's gonna be like humble and like come across.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be humble. It just doesn't have to be crude. Yeah, that's another quick clip from Flinch. And that is another example of our technical difficulties. As said, we went through several attempts here, and I thought it would be funny at first if I could play those 3 or 4 first attempts, but I've got all these SD cards, so I'm not going to dig around and find them. So we're going to jump in with the full interview with Thomas Kendrick. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. So did you catch that?
I heard that some lady said it was recorded.
Yeah, that's my girlfriend. No, that's so. I just looked in on. I went online while I was trying to format another card for this, and I just checked, how to record a phone call with an iPhone. So we'll just go from here. So Here we are, Gwadzilla Podcast. I'm walking outside of my basement. I'm gonna head back to my backyard and do what we're going to say is take 6? But we've covered some ground. I've been talking to I've been talking to Tom Kendrick. Yeah, Tom, let's just back it up real quick because we don't know what's recorded. Why don't you give us the basic information on what year it was that you became a messenger and how you became a messenger?
Okay, so it was around 91, 92. And I had a job as a painter, but the company I was working for, they thought that they were paying me too much money, so they wanted to open the contract up for bidding, and and then I was informed that I probably wouldn't want to continue doing the job because they were going to pay me less money, and I thought it was like it was a pretty hard job. I really busted my butt, and so then it was like I was at a crossroads. But the thing was, is I knew Tobin and those people, and they were like, "Look, you just." I was like, "I need a job," and they were like, "You just be a bike messenger." And so, found a bike that was locked up that somebody left. It was a lead sled Schwinn, whatever, with some suicide levers, and got that bike. And my first day was a blizzard. Actually lost a package going to OPM, but didn't get fired. And that was my first day. I just remember like wearing some long johns, some Pro Kids, and some jeans, and the jeans like froze because like the snow was up to your like knees almost, or mid calf. And
so that's a tough start.
For a while, yeah,
you probably how many runs did you do on that first day?
I think I did 20.
Oh, that's impressive.
I mean, but I had to walk my bike, and it was like got lost because I didn't have GPS, and it was like, basically you were just like figuring it out,
Yeah, and so it's interesting. So intakes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We had talked about some of these players, and it just happenstance that you met these two dynamic characters, Dave Tobin and Wiggy Austin, and those two guys were both local skateboard legends who worked as bike messengers. And Wiggy did it for
Tim Whistler, yeah,
and Tim Whistler as well. And as I said before, Tim Whistler was on the cover of Thrasher magazine, I think in 1981. It's a classic issue because it also interviews Ian MacKay. But he writes, or Ian MacKay writes the article about Cedar Crest. I don't know. I don't have that, whatever. Not my history. But still.
Yeah.
So those are some wild guys. And so you started out at Michael's. How long did you work for Michael's?
Okay, so all right. I think it was like maybe a year and it all ended when I got hit by the congressman. And so I was already getting to the point where I was getting ready, like I started knowing what was going on, and I was going to get a job at Messenger Express. So basically that happened. I got hit by the congressman. There was kind of some acrimony. Some of the people in the office, like they charged me for the radio because it got broken. Even though it was like I thought it was like kind of like little like, wow, you charged me for that. I'm doing the job.
That's a 1099. That's when you learn you're an independent contractor.
Yeah.
You're an employee until you're not. 1099 exactly.
So on that note, it was kind of like, it was time to move on. So I got the money and I took a little break, and then got to know some other people, started hanging out, and then I started at Messenger Express with Gary Sweeney. He was the dispatcher. Kind of a hyper nutty, but he used to go mountain biking. He liked his surfboards and his neoprene, and he was an interesting character.
That's awesome. Yeah, his name comes up, and it's an interesting relationship. And you said that Tim Whistler, Puker was your dispatcher for a bit, and then I've heard this name Gary Sweeney. And when we were talking earlier, you were telling stories of DuPont, and you had mentioned Leo, and Leo
Sofurlis.
Yeah, what's his last name?
Sofurlis.
Greek. Yeah. And so everyone always loves to tell a story that his father was a stonemason that worked on the National Cathedral. But I knew Leo from DC in the streets. So was he ever your dispatcher, or
Oh yeah, I worked at Quick. But okay, so the reason why I really met him is because I started like realizing that there were some people that bike raced. And he was one of the guys that used to have like the ultimate racing kit. Like he'd come to work and he'd have that on. So I started asking him about it, and then he was the one that came up with the the Thursday time trial. And I remember we used to go to his apartment at the Dorchester after the time trial, and he had an old analog computer, and he would type in the times and give out a sheet every week. And that's how I met him. And he got me into bike racing. Him and Zach Brown. Not so much Chris. Chris was around, but he was always kind of, on Chris, on THC. But yeah, it was Leo Furlis and Zach Brown. Those were the two people that got me into bike racing.
Yeah, I love that. Because within the myth and lore of the bike messenger is that bike messengers are top cyclists. When the reality is the top messengers are top cyclists, and a lot of people are just pedaling around. But so
Yeah.
yeah, the crossover to racing, I've interviewed Zach Brown, and yeah, it's a very cool history of DC racing. Those
hmm
guys got on the podium, in the local series quite a bit.
Well, it was Doug Willier too. Now he was the one that actually had the racing club. It was called Ultimate Racing, and then well, he got that sponsor, Burrito Brothers, and that was a whole other
So,
thing
did you
because
ride for
there
a
was
road team or a mountain bike team, or did you
no,
solely race?
it was Ultimate Racing. That was my first racing club. That's what it was. It was club racing.
And what
But you
category
got
did you
well.
race?
I started like at a citizens race, and then I worked up to Cat 3. You know,
Nice.
yeah. So, but yeah. I mean, it was a it was definitely like sometimes I was definitely asking myself why I'm not doing this because like I've played sports, I played football. I played on state championship football when I was in high school and got a 3-year letter, and that was a whole different thing. But like the bike racing thing was just like I thought it was like way more harder than playing football. Like playing football is like it's like a different, like you got the power and you got the speed and like the hits and stuff like that. But you get to take a breather. In bike racing, you don't get to take a breather. If something happens, like, you get a flat or you go off the road, and if you can get back on, then you have to chase back on. Unless, like, you have some teammates to help you. And see, that's the thing about the amateur racing is that like so many people don't really know, like me, myself included, like how you're supposed to race. So it was a rough learning curve for sure.
Yeah. So, did you race locally? Did you travel? Did you ever do
Um,
anything international?
yeah, we did. No international stuff. Basically, the farthest I ever went was like Wisconsin, New York, uh, Tennessee. It was like, but see, the thing is like, I kind of struggle because, with bike racing, you don't have a whole lot of time to like learn what's going on, and it's hard because like you don't like for me like I felt like I probably should have listened a lot more to what was, I don't know. It was just like one of those things. I mean, I kind of got it, but then it was like, then I got to a point where I realized that, that I wasn't that fast, and it was like, and that's when it was kind of like, year 5, year 6, and then I had an accident. And then it just was like, well, I'm gonna hang it up. But I mean, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I have no regrets, and I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is within the circle of people that you mentioned. I don't know what year Jay Moglia came on the scene, but
Yeah. Jay was like, yeah. See, Jay was kind of one of those distant guys
he was a
because,
coach and
right.
he ran a coaching program, and he had the training facility, the Raw Talent Ranch, and then
Yeah,
also
but see, that was way before that. See, because now, like, I got to know Jay Moglia. I don't know, it was through like some music too, because he was a musician. He used to play in like White was it Salt Diamond Mine, and there was some people that in that band that he knew that I knew, and so that's how we kind of knew each other. And but me and him used to train together. Like we would go to Skyline during the winter time, and like we'd have to sneak on because the forest rangers were having you going up there with like snow being on the skyline. Like he was pretty dedicated, as far as his training regimen. But yeah, that really sad. I mean, that really upset me, like when he passed away. But I'm really glad that he was basically doing what he loved, and for me, like it's sad not to be able to talk to him anymore because I used to speak with him every day. But life is life. Life is life, and
So yeah, so the thing about bike messengers, and the myth and the lore is that so many of these people were insane characters, and
right,
so here's Jay Moglia, and I mean he's cool as a cucumber, but he's a writer, he's a musician,
yeah, exactly.
he's a racer, he's a coach,
He's
and
on the edge,
yeah, and for him to work as a messenger and have this side plan,
right?
to buy a barn, it's a little bit Field of Dreams ish, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and I mean I interviewed this one guy, Lawrence McDonald, and he was a messenger, and he bought this farmland, but I think that
right.
it was an evolution of what do I do with it. I mean, he's an organic farmer now, but I
Right.
think that he thought that he could put some Mongolian huts on it and have it be a bird watching sanctuary. And
All
no, I
right.
think you know what I'm saying. Like
No,
he,
that
he
is
he
funny.
he bought it with original intention, but yeah, I mean he went to school, and he did post bike messenger things, but he had this dream, and the dream pushed him, and he tried to make top dollar and save top dollar. I mean, if you were going out drinking with Lawrence, I think you were picking up the tab. It's
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. That was one of the things that I kind of stayed out of the bars quite a bit. I mean, I had my little like. See, when I did go to the bars, then I got in trouble, and so then I had to like not do it anymore. But yeah. I mean, I think that what Jay did, see, because back in the day, like we used to go to his parents in New Jersey, and he'd have like it was like Shane, Sheba, Jason Stevenson, me, Chris Schmidt, Zach Brown, everybody that was on Burrito Brothers basically, and so we would go stay with him at his parents' house. And then we trained up there, So he kind of always was like, had that kind of like family vibe going with him, like with the cycling.
Yeah, I think there's been some mentorship. Jay Moglia, and
Right.
on through the ranks. There was another tragedy. There was Chris Soda, and he was
Oh,
showing some
yes.
promise as a
Oh, yeah.
racer, and
Right.
he it's really unknown what happened. He was diabetic and
Well,
had a crash. But
okay. Well, the story is that he was mountain biking and he crashed really hard on a descent. And okay, so I was living in Baltimore at the time, and so I'm going to University of Maryland hospital on Green Street, right? Because I used to have a, a mail drop there scheduled. So I walk in there and I see Jay Moglia standing there at the podium or whatever talking to security. And I went up to him. I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he was like, because I wasn't in the lib, and he was like, "Oh, Chris Soda's in the hospital." So I used to go visit Chris when he
hell
was in
yeah,
the hospital. Yeah,
good on you.
right.
Yeah,
But
so Chris Soda, Chris Soda would turn to Jay Moglia, and then Russell the Muscle, Russ Langley, I think may
hmm
have been a mentor to some.
oh
Chris
yeah, he
Rabati
was
was
an
a strong
incredible rider.
racer, and I think that Chris Rabati who I want to interview. Chris
Well,
Ramadi.
that's after my time, though. Like, I don't know much about Chris, though. I've heard the legend, but I know more about like Russell the Muscle. Yeah, because I remember Russell, like he had some, like it wasn't easy for him. Now I remember he had. Everybody knows about this one accident where he like split his face, and I think he had this other issue before that where he had a like kind of a nasty knee injury, and I think he had to ride like a moped for a couple minutes just to like make a couple bucks. But then he made a rebound, you know. But when he showed up, it was just like he totally changed. Like everything changed. It was like it was so much faster when Russell Muscle was there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he won districts or whatever. You know, I mean, a lot of all those guys.
He was a professional. I mean, I saw him racing with like the pros in front of the State Department with like George Hincapie and Hank Vogels. He was in the break with Hank Vogels after they just got back from Paris-Roubaix. It was crazy.
That's amazing. So, in addition to like the U.S. Cycling Association type racing, you know,
Right.
did you race alley cats and that type of race?
Okay. Now, the alley cat for me was like, I mean, I used to do them, and then I kind of got disillusioned towards it. I don't know, because I guess I just never was. It was kind of the same thing with bike racing. Like, you know, I had okay results, but it wasn't anything astounding. And so I was always looking like, okay, you know, maybe that was my delusion that like I can actually find a way to make, you know, this a living, you know. So then it was kind of like I'd already been playing music for a long time. So, you know, after that, it was kind of like, you know, I kind of just started going away from it and just getting into playing music and doing artwork more.
That's super cool.
But it is cool. Like for me, like I always found it like pretty amazing that there is a culture of the alley cat, and you know that people are enthusiastic about it, and it's still a tradition. People are still very much doing it, and I find that, you know, very to be a part of that, you know, was like amazing.
Yeah, I think that there were some wild parties, a lot of adrenaline. I mean,
Yeah,
you
there was a lot of wild parties, you know, wild characters, yeah, crazy things that happened during the races, and you know, it was just, you know, I mean, like, you know, to look back at on it now, like, I'm like, wow, man, like that actually happened. It's pretty amazing, you know, because a lot of people live pretty boring and humdrum life, you know. You know, and I'm just really glad that I was a part of that.
So yeah, we touch on some things. I know that you were in a band. What is it? Flinch.
Yeah, I was Flinch with Alec Armbrister, and
Rest in peace.
yeah, rest in peace. Yeah, he passed away, though he passed away very peacefully. Apparently he, like, you know, nobody had heard from him, and they went to his apartment and he was in his bed. So, you know,
He was well loved. You know, it's
yeah,
it's sad.
and
It's
he
sad he
went.
didn't get
I
to
mean,
live.
you know, it's like dying on a bike or in bed at your house. I mean, that's pretty good situation to die, you know.
Yeah,
But I really like playing with them because well, it was really funny because you know John Michaels.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we were living in I lived with him on Perry Place. This was when Frank had this house on Frank Peel. So it was me, John Michaels. I don't know who else was there at the time. I think it was just me, John Michaels, and Frank. So some people put it out there. They were like, "Hey, you know, Flinch needs a guitar player, blah blah blah." And I was like, they gave me a record, you know, and I listened to it, and I was not really sure if I wanted to do it, but John Michael was like, "You should just do it," and it was really nice that he encouraged me to do it, because then we made a record, and it was totally different from what they did previously. So I was really happy that it was like kind of our thing originally. But I was really thankful. There's so many good people that I remember from DC, and John Michaels was one of them. Also, there was Paul Meehan. God, I'm trying to remember people now. It's like, but Paul Meehan.
So you've got this band, and
Right.
it's primarily couriers, and
Well, no,
you
it
put out
was
your own
just
record. Okay,
Well,
but
it was like me and Alec were the only two that had anything to do with bicycles. Now, Lucci, he was from Brazil, and he had went to music school, and he was really good at recording, and we were able to utilize some of his connections to come up with to produce a record. And then we had this. We did have one courier. His name was Jay Belmore, but he didn't stay very long. He kind of went in and out. And then we had another vocalist. His name was Doju, and he was half Puerto Rican and Japanese, and he was a great vocalist. Like him, and I kind of wish that they would Jay would have stayed in the band. We could have had two vocalists, but sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, especially in bands.
yeah. So where did you guys play? Did you guys play out at all?
Well, yeah, we'll see. Okay, so we played out a lot. We played out a lot in DC, and I guess the turning point was we were supposed to meet some people in Boston, and there was no I guess I was a prima donna. I don't know what else to say about it, but to me, there was some things going on that were really fairly unstable. How it is with bands, and personalities, and and then you feel you're doing stuff carrying equipment, and a couple band members aren't doing it, and some of them can't drive, so you're carrying equipment, you're driving, and oh, so I get to play with these guys. That's what it felt like sometimes. And I mean, I was still enthusiastic with it, but the breaking point was that I was I'm not quite sure that I want to just hop in this van, which I could have, but I didn't know these people at all, and so it was kind of and then we had an issue with the singer. Well, we didn't have Jay because he didn't want to have anything to do with it, and the other guy, Doju, he had this job and he couldn't just take off, so that was when it broke up. But we did make a record, so
Very cool. But you still played music,
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it
and
was
then
fun.
but how about did you form other bands? Did you record other music?
After that, it was kind of just I started focusing on being a bike messenger and just making a lot of money, getting a lot of tattoos, partying, traveling. It was kind of going to see my folks, in West Virginia. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. But then about 2005, and then that's when I moved to Baltimore.
That's when you went back to
Yeah.
started going back to school, or
Well, okay. Well, no, this is what happened. Basically, I was living in Tacoma Park, and this is before, now I can say this, but we had this, weed operation. And it was actually, I'm not going to mention any names, but, so we were growing pretty big weed, and so you know how that goes. People start finding out, even though that you don't tell anybody. Well, somebody dropped off a grow light, and then the landlord saw it. So that was the reason why I had to move. Every year it was weird. I was finding myself moving farther and farther away from downtown because it's getting expensive. So I kind of felt like a refugee of sorts. So I moved to Baltimore because it was much cheaper. Basically I moved into a warehouse, and actually when I moved to Baltimore, I couldn't be a messenger because it's not like that up here. And actually, right now, there's only like two bike messengers. It's dead here.
Yeah, I think
But
that I think it's
yeah,
declined in all cities. I think food is probably it. Weed is probably existing in every city. So
yeah,
so I think that if I were to talk about like, and I mentioned his name before in podcasts, but he is one of the so like Suave is still out there.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
But if he's doing food delivery, we have to redefine it and say that, like
right.
back in the 80s when and 90s when you started, like if someone delivered Chinese food or Domino's, they did not roll up and hang with bike messengers. There was a
Oh no, yeah, like you made fun of people that delivered food. Like I was like, I'm not delivering food. I just remember being in Baltimore, and see, I actually did pretty well in Baltimore. Like, because I had that DC hustle. Like, I was working for two companies, and I was averaging like $800 a week up here. And but they had these guys that were working for like Jimmy John's and stuff, and that's how they got into being bike messengers is by delivering sandwiches. And I never would really make fun of them in front of their face, because they're people too. But it was just something that like I was like, I'm not delivering food, and then then that's all there was. And I remember like a few years ago, I had to do it up in Baltimore, and it was horrible. Like people don't tip, it's Baltimore's like dark and there's holes everywhere and like the work's really spread out and I just was like and then I did it for a while in DC with Uber and yeah it was a little better but I was like this is not being a messenger and like I quickly I was able to be a bartender. Luckily, Christine Lillier gave me a job at Slash Run and the Runaway bartending. Which is kind of
and
it's
two
surfing.
wonderful bars. Rest in peace.
Yes, yes, rest in peace. But they were great bars, and Christine really did a great job with those bars. I mean, I really was I was like really felt lucky and fortunate that I was able to like have an opportunity to do that.
I think it was Bruce. Bruce hosted an Alley Cat that ended at Slash Run, and Kristen Forbes' band played.
Oh, Kristen Forbes, yes, yeah, Scotch Bonnets maybe or one of
Well,
those.
she kind of has her own solo thing, Lady
Yeah, she has
Hatchet,
a lot. Yeah, she has a lot of bands.
And
I
then,
saw her recently at Bar. She's still rocking.
yeah, she's awesome. And Zach Brown, actually, this was a. I hosted an
Right.
Alley Cat one time that ended at a bar
Oh, right, and they play.
Where Jay Moglia and the Chariots were playing. But Jay and I
Right.
we had a bit of a feud because he wanted there to be a cover. I said, if there's a cover, I'm not
Oh.
going to end my Alley Cat there because no messenger wants to pay a cover to drink beer. They just want to drink beer.
Yeah, see, okay, now see that like my attitude with that was
He ended up giving in. He didn't
I'm not
charge a
I
cover.
mean I mean I never cared about like how much money I made playing, especially like when you're just messing around DC and playing these little small clubs. Like we did a couple shows for like Alley Cats that ended at like what is it, it's the lounge that's what was it called on U Street? I forget. I'm having like can't remember. Come on, it was Velvet
Oh
Lounge,
yeah, Velvet Lounge.
right?
Hell yeah, yeah.
And but the thing was like I never cared. Like I was like, I'm not charged. I'm like, I don't care. I just want to play. Now, if it was a different situation where you're out on the road and you're playing cities and stuff, then yeah, I want to have my gas money and have food to eat, and hopefully I can make a profit. But I'm playing local for like with my friends in the community. I'm not really interested in like trying to collect.
Yeah, but
I was just like, I'm gonna have fun.
yeah, I think that most of the bands, I don't know if it's an art project, and you want to share your art.
Oh yeah, you want to
It's
share your art and you work hard, but at the same time, it's like, come on, man, what else would you be doing?
well, I think for a lot of people, I mean, you were in a very DIY era, and yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've got this friend Jason Farrell, and he was this
Right.
dynamic skater in the Cedar Crest era, and you know, he stepped away from skating and focused on music, just like you stepped away from
Right.
music and focused on racing. Like
Right.
it's like life is full of choices, and we can't do everything all the time.
Well, actually, I
Haha.
did. I stepped away from racing and then focused on music. Like, cause the racing thing, like, it was like I, I think I stopped in like '95 or something. It wasn't '96. It wasn't very long, but I stepped away from it because it was like it's a lot of work. You know, it's like current's not fun when you're in a bike race. When you're a bike racer, it's like I just remember working for Quick and like they'd give you jobs and pagers, and I would clear them out, and I wouldn't want to call in. I would want to take a nap on the bench on Monday because I'd race this weekend, and then you want to take it easy on Friday because you got a race. So and then like on Friday it's always busy and they want you to show up, or like they'll fire you because you're not showing up when it's
And
busy.
you know why Friday was
So it
busy?
wasn't that. Well, yeah, because it's the work. Oh, because people weren't there.
Because people got paid on Friday, and when people
Yeah.
got their check, they went to a liquor store and they cashed their
Oh,
check
yeah.
and they started to hang
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I never did
Companies would
that.
lie about the check. No, the check's not in, and people wouldn't even take
Mm.
work because it's like,
Yeah. See, I don't get that dynamic because when I was working, I mean, I just was like, okay, I'm not. I'm gonna go as fast as I can, but not really that fast just to save my legs. But I showed up to work and, I didn't, when I got my check, I just, threw it in the bank and that was it. But yeah, I know what you're saying. A lot of people were like into having the chicken wing and baskets and the 40 ounce and,
and so yeah,
you
and so
know.
so 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 so, so it's interesting. We had talked before about how you lived in either a group house or even a studio apartment for
Right,
between $200 and
right.
$400, and how it escalated and escalated. Now things are cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
And it was a different time, and also like where you lived, it was pre-gentrification, so these weren't renovated properties; these were
yeah,
properties on the decline.
yeah,
But also,
exactly.
so you started in the early '90s and you finished in the early 2000s. And what people have to understand is that there was a messenger business peak where there were where we you said that Baltimore has two messengers. Well, DC maybe only has maybe 20 or 30 that
Right,
possibly, but there was a
right.
time when there were 1,000 bike
Yeah,
messengers, and there were
yeah,
motorcycle messengers, and there were car
right,
messengers. Like paper was being moved, originals were being
right.
moved. The
Yep,
city didn't operate without every piece of the machine, and the bike
exactly.
messenger. I mean, it was just messenger. Everyone.
It was integral.
Yeah, it was without a doubt. Picking up like some sort of like press release, or you're up on the hill
Yeah.
and you're picking out
The
it's a bill or a
HRs, the
law.
Senate docs,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
Senate
HR
docs
doc.
exactly.
And then people that were able to get like more than what they were supposed to get out of Senate doc and House doc, because that was, like if you could come up with more than two copies, because you were only allowed to get two copies of
No,
each like doc,
I got
like
you. I got
you
you.
were getting six
I got
bucks
banned because
because of that.
I would grab a tourist and go, "Hey, can you go in there and get me a
Oh right, give me
HR
the
240?"
HR Senate fucking 360. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And they're
Right.
like
They
they're like,
busted you for that.
yeah. And I had this big thing. I was like, are you telling me that if it says don't walk, you walk, you don't walk, walk and it's clear? Like I was like saying, we all bend the rules. Just let me bend the rules. And I tried to explain that, like,
Yeah, it's about
like,
money.
like you're saying, I could only get at that point it was one an hour,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you could come
yeah.
back,
Right.
but yeah, but then I think that at the GPO building, they had some stuff delivered there, and then I
Uh-huh.
think people would knew that you could like snag other people's pickups.
Oh, see, I never got involved with that, so but I could see it happening for sure. Like,
Yeah, Rebecca Riley and I were talking, and we were talking about alley cats, and
right, Rebecca. That's
yeah,
funny.
But
Right.
what is cheating in an alley cat? Because there were messengers,
Oh yeah. Well,
like a messenger could get a multiple, and they know that it will never be read, and it's an underpaying multiple. Sure, it's a bunch of drops, but
right.
even the
Right.
multiple drops only add up to be $12, and maybe they
Right.
would skip the last one, or you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. I get it.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
like,
I
no,
mean,
this is going straight in the trash when it gets there.
oh yeah, well, you hear stories about like, actually like whole fucking buildings, excuse my language, whole buildings not getting delivered. But, I'm not going to mention any names on that. I just know that like when I ever had to do it, it was kind of like more like I remember we had to do these pizza boxes and they had like a sheet of paper in them. And I remember the day that I had to do every room in the Rayburn, and I made $550, for the day. So I delivered them, But see, I was never really much in those situations with the hill multiples. Like I was more of the distance person, and like just I would do like 60 jobs a day, 60 miles, 60 jobs, and sometimes I would never really I never liked doing the seed holding things because they had unless you were like conscripted to do it. I remember when I worked at Quick, they were basically like,
You wanted to
if you
be out
don't
there on the
do
bike.
this, yeah, well, yeah, and I was like, they were like, especially when I started focusing on it and I stopped racing. But like the thing was, is like, they were like, if you don't do the multiple or like the seed holding, we're not going to give you any work. I mean, that's basically the deal. So I was conscripted on some of those things, and sometimes you get conscripted on multiples, but yeah, I was really not a multiple or a seed holder. Really, I mean, now I like the multiples where you get like, say, all those core files. You get like DOJ, FTC, 333, 500 Indiana, Corporation Council. That was my gravy. That's what I like to get.
Yeah, and so what people don't understand, like say we're saying we're moving papers, and each one of these is a government building,
Right,
and everyone had some sort of clerk's office, and these lawyers would have these
right,
documents that would have
yeah,
to be date and time
yeah,
stamped, and so it was a time where like, and yeah, you got that work, and to give you a multiple, they're like, well, we know this guy can not only be fast, but you're smart
yeah,
enough to like assist this
yeah,
person, and
yeah.
sometimes you gotta sweet talk them to get up and help you out to move faster,
Or be able to drop it off and then go somewhere else and then come back and get it. So, yeah, yeah, be able to drop stuff off, come back and get it, so that you could do all of it at one time and not miss the because usually it's like what courts closed at 4:30, so you got to make sure, and they would give you the stuff at like 3:30, so it's not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I mean there would be some law changing, and then
Right.
you'd have to like do like you would just nonstop be going back between a law firm like let's say Elias
Right.
Matz on 15th to the bank board at 1700
Yeah.
G, and just
Yeah.
as much as you can carry back and forth. I mean, you're not even getting tickets for it. They're like, well, there's no time for all that.
Yes, yeah, I don't know too much about that end of it because when I was doing that, I was doing it for RNS, well, it turned into Corporate Express, but yeah, I was getting just some gravy stuff, like it was just envelopes, but it was a lot of it was like FTC, DOJ, FCC, it was a lot of stuff, and you had to get it done in an hour. And you had to know how to like, go into 500 Indiana, then go into 333, how to drop off something at like FTC and then go to DOJ and then go somewhere else and then come back to DOJ, FTC and get those things before they closed.
Yeah, and in some
Yeah,
cases, you'd have to have the wisdom of where's the best place to lock up the bike, which is the
yeah,
best entrance to go
right,
into,
yeah,
and where is the
exactly,
room? Like, do I go
yeah,
on
exactly,
escalators? What is
right,
JM
yeah,
1260?
yeah, right,
It's like,
yeah.
I mean, you learn it, but you got to learn it fast.
Yeah, it takes a few years though. Like I didn't get that, until like year 5 or year 6. I mean, it was, it was a learning curve. But yeah, like I did the messenger thing for 15 years, and in DC. Well, I had that major league accident where I had that compound distal fracture, tib fib, which it was like at the height of my money making, and I had that accident, and at the same time I was in trouble with the police because I had an incident at the common share.
Which was a bicycle courier bar at the
right,
base
right,
of
yeah,
18th and
and then
Adams Morgan.
what happened was I ended up hitting this cop who I think he retired in like 2023 as the head police chief for Amtrak. I'm not going to mention any names, but yeah, he definitely was trying to slide me some major league jail time. And the only reason why I got off was because I didn't have any priors. But he was definitely trying to get me hemmed up. He had me on pre-trial for a long time. Ended up like, going through stuff with that. Huh?
What was the altercation? Because
Oh,
people
yeah,
don't
because
realize
I
this.
was... Okay, this is what happened. I'm drunk. I come out of the common chair. There was this guy who was hugging up on me. He kept hugging, and I kept asking him not to do it. And then I guess finally, somebody said that I punched him. I don't know. So I go to my bike. I'm getting on my bike, and I'm starting to ride up the street. And all of a sudden, and I'm going to mention his name. His name was Peter Fetner. He decides as a bouncer that he needs to detain me, so he kicks me off my bicycle. And then all of a sudden, I'm on my back, and somebody comes up over top. Like Peter Fetner's holding my legs, and somebody comes over the top, and I guess it was this cop. And I still had my bike lock in my hand, so I started, going up to defend myself. And then he said he was a cop, and then that's when I let go. But see, they never got the lock of the bike because I'm not going to mention any names, but some people got that stuff, which, because they would have brought that up as evidence. But, yeah, I got in a lot of trouble over that,
Well, there was a messenger who died in a conflict with a
altercation.
bouncer.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Chase. It's
Oh, I
it's
didn't know that. Really? What happened?
um being kicked out of the bar, thrown,
Right,
and
right.
the guy fell back and
And
hit
then
his
people
head.
just, attacking him
No, 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 no,
for,
no. He fell back and
oh,
hit his head.
oh,
But
wow.
he was really good friends with Chris Brown. He was a fixed gear guy. He was a skateboard
Oh,
guy,
okay. I didn't
and
know that.
yeah.
Wow.
So, but it's a tragedy because it's a mismanagement of power.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, this guy, the cop that showed up, he was with his wife because she had just got done retiring from the Mooney paper, Washington Times, as a police reporter, and they decided to go to, Adams Morgan to celebrate for the night in, a government car. Actually, he was caught up in some they had it in loose lips in the city paper. There was a lot of corruption going on where they were using, vehicles and gas cards and buying their people, friends gas on the government tip. He was totally corrupt, and so he gets out
I'm
of the
not saying it's
car and
right
he
or wrong.
tries to save the situation that he should have
People did
never.
what they did. You know.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is he should have never. I mean, I don't understand what he was thinking, but and then it was oh, I'm a 27-year on the force gang intelligence detective. I'm like, what are you doing in Adams Morgan then? you know. I don't know. But anyway, so, I mean, I got through that. They gave me 5 years probation. I got off after 2, but, I broke my leg and, that was kind of now I'm still having problems because of it because I should have one of my legs is shorter than the other. So I have some back issues now, but, I'm taking care of it. I get to go to see a doctor, so that's all good. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, And then I used to see the guy after the fact, and he got to the point where, he'd be like, "Oh, how you doing, Tom?" I was like, "Go fuck yourself." I mean, I'm sorry to say it right now, but it was that's what I used to say to him because it was you put me through all this stuff. Like, why? I don't understand it. It's like a power thing.
I,
That's credibility. See, that's what Washington D.C. is.
I had an altercation where you know, I was walking my dog with
Right.
my fiance, my two dogs, and we're crossing the street in a crosswalk. And this car is coming down the hill and they honk. You honk at me, I slow down,
Right.
And so I basically like
They're
stop and
looking.
I stop so they have to slow. And then when I'm finishing crossing the crosswalk with my dogs, they swerve their car at me.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I kick their car.
Right. That's funny. I've
Yeah.
done it too.
No,
So
no, except
I can't.
the not funny part was a police officer was right there,
Oh yeah,
and
watching, of
and
course.
I was
And then
immediately
you're wrong. Yeah.
I was
When
arrested.
you're a pedestrian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was arrested. Whatever.
Oh
But
really?
so years
Wow.
years later, I've seen this guy multiple times. I saw him and I actually apologized and told him that I was inappropriate. And he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "No, I know who you are." And
Right.
and we're throwing names around. It was funny because he was leaning on his horn while I was in the crosswalk, and his name was David and is David Horn. So
Hmm.
so
That's funny.
so it is funny, but I have to admit my contribution to it. What I did was wrong and inappropriate. But he should also admit that he was wrong. I'm not trying
Yeah,
to.
that
I'm
he
not.
played a part in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like. Oh yeah, come to think
The
about it, if I
part
had
you
been in the
played in it.
crosswalk, I wouldn't have
Right.
felt good about someone coming down the hill. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the thing is that okay, even when I was riding a bike, and yeah, I know sometimes people get you get frustrated, but the pedestrian has a right of way. You don't
Chris
like
Soda used to call it buzzing the tower, like Top Gun.
yeah,
He would
exactly.
like hit making an arc on a pedestrian real fast.
My thing was like try to go with the flow. Now I understand when you're not going with the flow and you're being a jerk, but it's like pedestrians always have preference. You don't run them over, even when they do things that they shouldn't be doing. For me, that was just like that. I think that really kept me out of a lot of trouble. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There was an article. It might have been in Bicycling Magazine. I should try and find it. And so there was a New York City messenger, Nelson Vales, who went on to be,
Yeah. Right.
a
Yeah.
top
Olympic
racer.
fame. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so he had written like a rule of urban riding, and
Cycling. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure that was top. I mean, he might have like even broke it down like you, pregnant woman, give him some
Right.
space,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
and broke it down
Exactly.
like everybody has rights, but even some people have more rights.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
he was like, no checking out the girls, if you pull over to check out the girls,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you don't do it so like you're being an impediment and a danger to other people in public. I mean, it's public safety.
but
It's basic public
but I
safety.
think that one thing that does happen is the cyclist gets to have a different perception of
Right,
proximity, and then the pedestrian, and now so more so with the phone, but the pedestrian was never that
right.
like if it were the game of Frogger. I mean, they're not even looking left, so the
Right.
cyclist is not coming out of nowhere. The
Oh
pedestrian
no.
is often,
Right.
and then even if there's no contact and the pedestrian is shocked, they wouldn't be shocked had they looked down
Of course
looked
not.
before they leaped.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like I don't know. What is it? It's like if you see something first, then you're already safe. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. I don't know if you're aware of something beforehand, like then the other
But it can be
person.
the exact opposite. A scared pedestrian can not realize that
Right.
your line is behind them and they jump back. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. Into the line. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like I guess what
come
I
on, come on. You have to remember, you had to have had like a movie moment where you hit a pedestrian and their briefcase
oh
open and papers went flying. I'm sure that had to happen once or
well, I
twice.
never had. I mean, I've landed on a hood of a car. okay. Actually, I did bump a pregnant woman once and this was when I was a rookie, but I stayed. And the thing was, back in the day, it was like all I had was my pager number. So I stayed there and gave her my pager number, and I stayed there until like she left, and I never heard from her. So um, let's see, what's the other one? Oh, getting run down by a taxi, right? So it was in front of Farragut. So the guy's trying to run me over, like he's gonna like play what is it, Chicken of the Road with me, which I'm not trying to play it. So I had to throw my lock at his windshield to get him to not like to hit the brakes. So the cops show up, and then like a bunch of couriers like claim to witness the thing, and so I'm talking to the cop afterwards, and he goes, "I'm not going to do anything about this situation." And I was like, "Well, why?" And he's like, "Well, because your courier witness friends ruined it for you." So the interesting part was, it was when we had landline phones. Somehow this lady had my phone number. So I get a call one night. I actually answered the phone. I pick up the phone, and I hear this like quaint Indian woman, maybe Pakistani. And she's like, "May I speak with Thomas Kendrick?" And I was like, "Speaking." And she goes on to like tell me about how she was very sorry for what her husband did, and that would you please not try to do anything to him. Now, this is really funny because it's like I wasn't gonna do anything. I wasn't looking for this guy. Like, you have so much more to do during the day than like to focus on some stuff that happens out on the street. And I reassured her that I wasn't gonna. I'm like, I have no interest in like harming your husband, and I really appreciate you calling me, and thank you for being so thoughtful. It was just a really funny story. It's like I don't know where else you would find any story like that.
Well, I think that it's the conflicts.
Yeah,
The
conflict.
conflicts between. Do you remember the band, the Meatmen?
Yes. Tesco V.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so he was comedic, and I can remember seeing
I remember.
Wiggy at the shows and Dave
Right.
Tobin. We were all at the 9:30 Club, and Tesco V knew his audience, and like he had this song, and it's completely inappropriate, and it was "Camel Jockeys Suck."
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
yeah.
he'd sing it, but there, you know, traffic is bad. It's like swimming in the ocean is dangerous, and then you
Right.
enter the cab, and the cab is the shark. And it's
Well,
like they're
yeah. I mean,
trying to hit you.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like it's always an adversarial relationship, of course, but I don't think I've. I mean, that was the only time I think maybe that I've had any kind of run-in with like that hardcore, with like where they actually tried to hurt you. So cabs are. I don't think I could do the job because you're just picking up people and you don't know what they're doing, and like I mean, I've seen some crazy things with, like, I was rolling down M Street and there was somebody in the back of a cab, and all of a sudden glass just starts flying across M Street, and the guy, like, had, like, somehow was locked in the back of the cab. He was kicking his feet out so that he could, like, break the glass and then open
Oh,
the
because he
back
got to
door.
the destination and he didn't want to pay, so the child locked him
Yeah,
in.
lock the door. Yeah, so it's always something weird with the cab. I could never. I would never want to be an Uber person, like picking up somebody a
Well, Uber's
fare or
different
anything.
because they have your connectivity to you and your identity with your Uber
Yeah,
account.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. True, and like, but see, people are still like don't care. Like some people are just
But
like,
but the cab driver comes from Lenny Kravitz
yeah,
has his like cab driver. Well,
right,
yeah. Why are cab drivers? It's a business, and who's going to tip?
yeah,
Who's going to pay? And who's
yeah.
going to hold me up?
Right,
Like
exactly.
like the
And somebody just like lifts their arm up, and you're like, "Oh, well, I'm taking a chance," Yeah.
And yeah, so it is, and yeah, I guess New York they ended up having the glass between the passenger.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of like like a bodega.
Exactly.
They're moving bodega. I mean, that's the other thing I could think of.
And
But
and so I mean that's what a lot of people don't understand, and this like oral history concept, like
right,
you are from an era of low rent bodegas, bulletproof glass in every carryout joint
right.
around the corner.
Well, heck, not even paying rent because the place is like whoever's like the landlord's basically shaking you down and doing something sketchy themselves. And they're trying to, you know. That was the situation that was up on Gerard Street. I don't know if it's been like, well, now it's over, so you can talk about it. But so basically, that situation, like Sky Palace, I used to call it Guy Palette. And then there was the houses that were Shangri La, where Scrooge lived, and then I lived like below, like on the second floor or first floor, and then there was there was a bunch of people that lived over there: Richie, Grub,
So
Larry
so so so
Parks,
so hold on real quick. So just
Joe
just to paint the
Wildemuth.
picture is people what people don't understand is so
They're
there
all couriers.
all the city, all the neighborhood, these houses were built in the early 1900s, 1910,
Right.
1911. All the row houses were in decline. And a lot of
Yes.
people had bought these houses, and the renters would be group houses. And so in Mount Pleasant, Adams Morgan, and
Right.
Columbia Heights, you could have a city block, which let's say it has, 30 houses on the street, on one side of the street. It could
Right.
have 6 or 8 group houses of different identities. And it could be an artist house, or it could be,
Right. Right.
a,
Yeah.
a lesbian house, a
Yeah. This
musician
just happened to
house.
be like a little courier block. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
only really like two houses, but or maybe three. I think it might have been three. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, the people that owned it, right? They were from the Eastern Bloc, and so like they would do this thing where like they didn't give you any place to set it or check or nothing. It was just like they'd come by like you hadn't seen them in 6 months, and they would be like, "I want 6 months rent." And I'm like, "No, that's not how it's working for me. I mean, here's the this month's rent. Like, why haven't you been around here to fix anything here? So, and some people were just like they were into those people for tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not going to mention any names, but some people are like, they were like bragging about how they didn't pay, you know. So, but yeah, that was just a weird situation, Which like you're making like 900, maybe to 1,200, sometimes $1,500 a week, and then you're not paying rent, And sometimes I do kind of. I mean, I know that like for me, like I kick myself sometimes. I'm like, oh, I could have done something better with the money, but it wasn't even that long. Like I think I made that kind of money for maybe 2 or 3 years before it tanked. So
Well, I think that so I lived in group houses, and then as I
right.
outgrew it, I still lived in Mount
Well, I
Pleasant.
was fortunate like to live on that block too, like by myself, like because there was a couple like top floor like studio kind of situations, but yeah,
But what I was to say is I witnessed the real estate market change, and
right,
I saw you know houses that were selling for 150 to 275. Those houses are now 1.5 million.
yeah, I know.
I mean, they might have
Yeah,
had rent. It's
it's
the
just
bones.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But so what we didn't realize. Well, we none of us had the money to 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 make a down payment. But the smart thing would have been to
Right.
co-op a house. You know, and a bunch
Yeah,
of
I mean,
people.
yeah, yeah.
So
Like looking back on that, though, like people were, I don't know, people weren't thinking. I mean, I don't know. Is it youth or what is it? It's like, do you think that this is gonna last forever? I have no idea what goes
I don't
through.
think people didn't. real estate had always been an investment, but it never became this double your money in 5 years investment. And the real estate
Right.
market climbed at this rapid rate that people could flip houses, they could buy it and do nothing to it, not even rent it,
Yeah,
and
but
then
you still
sell
got
it.
to pay property tax.
Yeah, and then it would accrue, and I mean, there's got to be a ceiling to this, but it priced out. There's this guy Ian Savonius, and just as like there were all
Hmm.
these messenger group houses or
Right.
musician group houses, and their practice space was their basement. And Ian Savonius,
Symphonius. He's
yeah,
the rock and roll dude, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And he has like a pseudo documentary called Soft
Yeah.
Focus, and
Yeah, I saw him.
he's a
Yeah.
he's a
He's
comic
funny.
genius. Yeah, exactly. And he talked about this thing on NPR, I think it was called Electronic Clash, like the band The Clash. And,
Right.
and he was saying that there's no longer garages or group houses with practice spaces, so
Nope.
people play the music with a drum
Yeah.
machine instead of a drummer.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you can play straight guitar
It's
straight
dead
in with
on.
Pro Tools. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a choice, really. I mean, like, okay, that was one of the reasons why I moved to Baltimore. Because I could have a drum set. I could move into this, like, rundown neighborhood. You don't like your neighbors, they all stay on the top floor, so they never come down. They may throw their trash out the back window or some shit. And I could play drums till 5 a.m., and nobody's going to call the police. And that was one of the reasons why I moved to Baltimore, because you could have your own house for like significantly cheaper than it was to live in DC, you know? And it's still like that. I mean, people are like, the main thing is that like a lot of people are living in the suburbs of Maryland, and they'll come down and they'll get they'll park their car at West Baltimore and then get on the train and ride the MART train into DC, and they're not actually living in Baltimore. So Baltimore is kind of like, but a lot of the row houses, you're not gonna buy one or two of them because they want somebody to come and take the whole block off and put something else on it, you know.
Well, they've had a lot of
So
incentive programs like buy for a
they
dollar
do,
type thing with the promise
right?
to live there
But then
for.
you have to show that you've got like money to renovate. It's not a dollar, really. But I don't know what's gonna happen. I just you go down to downtown Baltimore now. After COVID, that was the death knell for the bike messenger. If we're gonna like tie this in, because when before COVID, there was law firms downtown in Baltimore, right? Well, after COVID, they all amskradiddled or whatever, and
Working
so
from
now
working from home.
or working remotely, or they moved their office out to the suburbs where it's significantly cheaper or closer to where they live, and so now there's no reason to have business downtown. So you get out to downtown Baltimore these days, there's nothing going on. There's no people. There's nothing. Now, see, that's one of the things I like, because when you're in DC, you know what you're dealing with in DC. And that's why I don't live there anymore, because there's so many people there that it just bugs me out. I don't know. Maybe this is off topic, but that's one of the reasons why I moved to Baltimore, because I couldn't deal with, the cost of living. Like, I mean, I tried to live there, and I ended up having to live in a bar. I couldn't rent my own place.
You lived in one of Christine's
I,
bars.
yeah, I lived at the Runaway. Yeah, that's where I lived. I mean, I was really fortunate that I was able to. Well, what happened was I stopped being a bike messenger, and this is where things like, because there was no more work after COVID, and there's no jobs in Baltimore. So I'm like trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, and I'm like running out of money. I was living in this one place in Reservoir Hill, and then the guy some stuff happened with some roommates that I was trying to rent to, and So then, it was like that fell through. So I lived in DuPont Circle for a while, and that was horrible because there were so many people there. Like it was okay during the morning,
So what
but
do you when
after
you say
that,
you were camping in DuPont Circle?
no, I was living with somebody. I was living with a friend, and I was living there, so I wasn't on the street. But it was just terrible. Like, you come out of the house and it's like, there were so many mosquitoes and I don't know. But
Well, because
yeah.
we have had our losses in the messenger community to homelessness, and
Oh yeah, yeah. No, oh yeah. I mean, I had to put up with some of that. I lived in Pittsburgh and luckily I had my bike and, some camping equipment because yeah, I was having issues, but luckily I never had to like stay in no brownstone or like, be out in the street in DC, you know. I've always been kind of what is it, resourceful that way. But
yeah, I
but
think that
now my situation like well now see I'm like, okay, I'm not doing these manufacturing jobs. I was a welder, I did like, I was a bartender, I was a painter. I'm not doing these construction jobs anymore. So that's why I'm trying to go to school and, get a job that requires a degree and, has a couple bucks with it. And yeah, I'm pretty long in the tooth. I'm at 58, so I'll probably graduate when I'm 62, but the bike has helped me stay young. The bike has been very, very good to me.
so. Are you getting assistance for the tuition, or
Oh
how?
yeah, well, okay, so this is how this is working, right? So right now I'm on disability because I have some back issues and stuff, and I got a letter from FAFSA, and so I guess it's part of the big beautiful bill or whatever. First, I get this letter. It says, "Okay, look, you're not going to have to pay back your student loans, right? Because you're on as long as you're on SSI, which I don't really intend to be on SSI as long, like if it happens, it happens. But I'm trying not to be on it. So, so then I get a letter that says, you're going to have to pay back the loan if you take out, if you go for take another round, right? Well, I've only been in school for a year, right? So if I don't take out any more loans, I don't have the money to pay for it. So that means I don't get a college education. So I'm going to take the loans and pay it because I want my degree. You understand? It's weird. It's weird that I got a letter like that.
They baited you.
Or just they sent it. I mean, it's part of the big, beautiful bill now. It's like, they're like, okay, well, we know that you're on SSI, but we're not going to, we're not floating you $40,000 and then you don't like, you don't get a job because and I don't want to be on a situation with SSI because then you can't work and, there's a lot of stipulations with it. You can't have a certain amount of money in the bank with it, you can't only have like $2,000 in the bank at one time. Yeah. So I'm definitely trying to like get a degree.
Well, it's
So
it's amazing that people exactly they work the system like they have to play the game like it's a
right.
it's a tough moment, like for a lot of the country, and a lot of people don't qualify for assistance because they make too much, but they don't make enough to live, but they
Right.
but they make
Exactly.
they make too much to get assistance. But that's but
Exactly.
that but that's I mean that's off topic, but we can bring it back because we did talk about the messenger thing, and a lot of people, the whole 1099 thing, you're working
Right.
for yourself,
Yeah, like they
like
say that you haven't worked. Like I should have been able to like qualify for SSDI, right? Because I worked and I paid my taxes. And they're saying because I didn't, yeah, 1099 that I'm only qualified for SSI. Yeah,
yeah. So
I
it's
don't think
I mean
that's fair.
it's why industries unionize. Workers'
True.
rights.
Well, they tried to do that with the bike messengers, but the Teamsters were like they didn't think that it was like something that they could shake down.
Well, I just think that it's yeah. I don't know the answer to what happened because I wasn't there.
Yeah, I
But
wasn't there
nothing's
either, but
nothing's done without work and with sacrifice
I
and,
mean, I
and
was
buy-in
there,
and
but I
commitment.
wasn't.
Like if you're going to be a union, you need to pay union dues. And I could just imagine a
Exactly.
lot of messengers saying, "No, I'm not
No,
giving you any of my
yeah, we're
money."
not going to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that it's a more complicated situation than just you know it. I was not at. I remember that it was the DC Bicycle Messenger Association. You
yeah,
know,
that's what Leo Sephiroth, right?
yeah, and so
And I remember when he laid it out, like because I would hang out with him, and it did make sense because it was the whole thing was that you weren't going to have like schlep rocks out there anymore. You were going to get paid what you were supposed to get paid. Yeah, you had to pay some dues, but you're not going to have schlep rocks anymore. You're going to have to like actually get a license to do it. Like you're going to have to pass a test. You can't just roll up with like your 40 ounce in your bag and some chicken wings in the basket and like pick and choose what you're going to do for the day. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole casual labor aspect that, bike messengering was famous for, though that, we all know that like, the people that actually worked and made money, you have to bust, you have to put your nose to the grindstone.
yeah, but there was even but it the and part of it is the average. There were too many slow days.
True. But I mean, the thing is about that slow day thing, like, well, I don't know. I was fortunate to always, like, have some kind of schedule stuff going on. So, like, I didn't feel affected by that. Though, you know, the only thing about that is, like, you kind of have to dedicate yourself to, you can't, like, if you're playing in a band or whatever, and then you're going to take off in 2 days and go off on tour for a month and a half, you're not getting that quality work.
Yeah,
So,
so that's a lot of people have to understand is there
yeah,
was this weird
yeah.
subjectivity, and the company or the dispatcher, like if you were the dispatcher's roommate or you were hooking them up with
Right,
cheap
right,
weed,
yeah,
you might get easy work, and
yeah.
so it was a weird thing. Like it wasn't just like who could pick the most apples. There was like this weird politics to the
Some
office.
nepotism, yeah.
Exactly, nepotism. Exactly. Who's in the messenger family?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of like that. I mean, but at the same time, like, I don't think I ever, like, rested on any laurels. Like, I always pretty much worked. And, whatever I was doing on the side, that was on the side. You know, I didn't expect to be treated. All I expected to be treated was that if I'm putting out the effort, then I want that effort. You know what I mean? And I never felt slighted. I don't think I've ever been in. I mean, the only places that I felt slighted was like maybe Apple.
Who were okay,
Like,
who who were your favorite and least favorite dispatchers?
okay, let me see. I'm trying to think. Okay, well, there was this guy at Apple I didn't like. He was, I don't know. Everybody seemed to like him. I think he was some kind of car driver, but I didn't like him.
What was his
Um,
name?
I don't remember his name actually. I mean, Mimi was okay, but I don't know. Like, um, I don't know. Maybe like I don't know. Some of the quick dispatchers were kind of like spicy at times, but I mean, I don't think I ever really had too many problems. I mean, see, it's been so long, so like I've kind of forgot, like you know. But I mean, it's always kind of like some kind of adversarial relationship. Like they'll want you to do things a certain way, and you're out there on the street and you're doing it, and you're like, no, that's gonna. I have to put out double effort. Why should I have to do that when I can do it this way? And that's where the.
Yeah,
See,
nobody.
I've never been in any situation where I've gotten burned. Well, I've gotten burned one time where like somebody was supposed to do something, and this was in the visa business, and the guy totally lied, and he basically took this guy's passport and never. He brought it to us like 3 days late. Like the guy was supposed to go somewhere the next day, and I'm the one, that ended up getting in trouble for it. But I mean, I didn't get fired or anything. But that's the only thing I can think of. Stuff like that. But I think I had a situation with Joe Woldemuth when he was working at Apple, or was it? It was Zoom. Okay, so I was working at Zoom, and I was getting like a guarantee. I was getting a $750 a week guarantee because Richie Grobe was like the dispatcher. So then something happened with him and the owner of Zoom, and he got fired. And so, the only reason why I was getting that guarantee was because of Richie. So then they just, like, 1 week, they didn't even tell me. They just took it, and I was making, like, 450, 500, like other scrubs. And then something happened with Joe Woldmuth, like, some package that I dropped off at Holland at night.
So that's Mohawk Joe.
Huh?
That's Mohawk Joe.
Yeah, Wildebeest. Anyway, God rest his soul. R.I.P. But well, I didn't get a signature because when you go to Holland at night, it was when they moved somewhere. They moved to some new place, and they always got an attitude in there, like oh gee, I have to like take the package from you or whatever, because of the little politics they got going on in the mailroom. So I dropped it off, and then all of a sudden I'm getting calls from Joe Wildemuth, like yelling at me about how like why like. Don't yell at me. Like, I'm not a retard. Like, I've been doing this job forever, and he knows exactly what happens in those mailrooms. So then, like, the owner gets on the phone, and he's telling me how he's not going to pay me. And I was like, what choice do you have right then? You have to quit. It's over. You're done. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not working here. I don't swallow, phlegm.
It was no signature that caused it, or did you lose?
Well, yeah, because no, I handed it to this guy Garner. He knows he had it. I went back there and talked to him. I said I handed it right to him, and then he acted like I was dry snitching. I'm like, dude, you took the package from me. Don't you had an attitude, and I had to have the lawyer there with me. I didn't hold back. I mean, I didn't curse or like act out of character, but I just like called it how it was, And so, I talked to the lawyer, and she was like pretty much, like, okay, you're not some like idiot that just like, is a liar. So she was okay with it. No, they kept on with it, and I was like, I'm done. See ya, Plus, I wasn't getting my guarantee anymore. Like, why should I put up with half or was it double the peril for half the pay? So it's like I have to worry. That was one of the things that like made me angry about that situation. Is you have to worry about things out on the street, and then you got to worry about what's going on in your company for people that's supposed to have your back. Dispatch.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you like to think that you're a work family,
Yeah, exactly. Like we're on the same team here, right?
And yeah, I've worked for a lot of different companies. I've worked for big corporations, and yeah, there becomes a point where you come to realize that no matter what you are, you're unless you're at the top of the pyramid, you're expendable. You're just a number.
Yeah, right. Yep. So but whatever. See, at that period of time, you could get another job somewhere. There was work out there. It wasn't like you didn't have to swallow. Like Joe Wildemuth, rest in peace. He ended up apologizing for the whole thing. I was like, you don't have to apologize to me. It's just like, but why would you like? I was like, you of all people who are a messenger, why would you go with like, some idiot owner of a company that's like, infamous for treating people like, garbage. Anyway,
So any stories about Joe? Like you know,
Yeah.
I used to see him downtown. We'd hang out and whatever, whatever. But what I really liked is I lived in Mount Pleasant for a long time, and
Right.
I used to see Joe pass, and he would go, and he would ride his bike with like a burly kid trailer behind it with his dogs and maybe I think several dogs,
That's
and he'd
funny.
go lock up, and he would go do a hike. I don't know, whatever. Like, but it was.
Right.
I'm a dog owner. I hike.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like
Like.
kind of
I
yeah.
love that. I love that little like sidebar of like, oh, look at
Right.
Joe. Like, or and because I lived there.
No, he was definitely an interesting character. He was an actor. He was talented. Just somebody trying to survive in the world like everyone else, and they have different ways of dealing with stress. That's all.
So he was an actor. What was up with that?
I don't, that was told to me by several people, like, so I don't really know, but apparently it's true, so, like, I never saw it, but some people, mentioned it. But, DC is a big place. People are, like, doing a lot of things, and sometimes you just focus on what you're doing.
Well, I think a lot of the people who were messengers. It was that sort of like like the New York waiter. It's a job you
Yeah.
did while you were trying to like pursue your dreams.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
because it gives you freedom,
yeah,
like, you don't have to, like, you're not beholden, you know.
I mean, freedom is the key word, and yeah, and
Yeah, it is.
it was definitely that was the name of the game, and I think that's why that's why the people were so colorful and so different.
Right.
They all had one thing in common, and that was, they wanted a different path. They wanted to live life on their terms.
Well, yeah, live, yeah, on your own terms. I mean, everybody needs money, unfortunately, but yeah, it's like like I could never. I don't know. I was never like that anyway. Like I did a stint in the military, and maybe that's where it comes from because I had too much of it, and like having somebody stand over your back and giving you politics along with like you having to do the job and making you feel bad about doing what you have to do for money to have food on the table and feed yourself as well as others if you have a family. So anyway, I'm getting tired, Joel.
Yeah. I think that we had it on a good note. I think that
Okay,
if we
if you want to come up with some other topics, if you can come and think about it, then in your editing,
no,
just
no,
let
no,
me
no, no.
know.
What we'll do is this will be part one, and we could catch up another time, and
Okay,
we could
cool.
just go down a completely different road.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Joel.
All right, let me see if I can figure out this recording thing. Let's see. Okay, that's a wrap. That is episode 27 of the Gwadzilla Podcast. I enjoyed having a conversation with Thomas Kendrick. We were able to catch up and get a little bit of his story. Clearly, Thomas has more stories to tell, and I look forward to meeting up with him or having another phone conversation. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think that added to the fatigue and the exhaustion. But yeah, look forward to seeing Thomas on the Gwadzilla Podcast again. And thank you to any and all who had photos on Facebook that I pulled from Thomas's page to help tell the story. And thanks to the members of the band Flinch for allowing me to use their music. You can catch Jay Belmore on one of the earlier episodes of the Gwadzilla Podcast to hear his side of the story. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with everyone soon and having another episode of the Gwadzilla Podcast. We'll close out with the song Octopus by Flinch. You can find Flinch on YouTube, and maybe to find it more easily, you might want to search for Never Fear, Flinch is Here, along with the band Flinch. And they've got all the tracks of their one record release available for your listening pleasure on YouTube. Enjoy, and thank you very much to any and all whose photos I borrowed from Facebook off Thomas Kendrick's page. I apologize for not giving any credit. That would be difficult, as we may not know who took those photos. I appreciate the use, and it helps to tell the story. Thank you, and check us out again later. The Gwadzilla Podcast, signing off.